Just like Monday Night Football, the Bills are one step ahead of the New York Jets. After the Jets' loss to Buffalo, they went out and traded for Davante Adams, bolstering what is shaping up to be the best receiving core in football. The Bills, they responded. They said, "Hold my beer." Not 5 hours later, Amari Cooper is packing his bags and heading to Cleveland to Buffalo. The Bills are sending a 3rd and 7th round pick for Cooper. Buffalo will receive a 6th as well in return. Two teams in the AFC East making waves just a day after facing each other. Did the Bills overpay? Maybe a little bit, but the two very similar packages for 2 more years of control under Davante Adams versus an expiring contract of Amari Cooper. But it's a much-needed receiver to make up for a barren receiving core out in Buffalo. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tommy John Studio in New York City. I am your host, Charlie DiSturco, and this is Green Dot Daily, coming to you live every weekday at 3 Eastern on the Action YouTube channel and the Action app. Aside from NFL talk, we've got Sean Zerillo hopping on to break down the championship series on the diamond. Are the underdogs barking here, and can the Mets ride the magic of Grimace to the World Series? We'll also get WNBA talk from Marino with the WNBA Finals tied at 1 game apiece heading back to Minnesota. Can the New York Liberty avoid losing as heavy favorites entering this one? All those questions coming up on Green Dot Daily. But first, we're talking the news of Davante Adams to New York. After the Jets' third straight loss, New York went and bolstered its receiving room with the acquisition of Adams. The Raiders will receive a conditional 3rd round pick in the deal that becomes a 2nd if Adams is a 1st or 2nd team All-Pro or on the Jets' active roster in the AFC Championship and Super Bowl. He is reunited with Aaron Rodgers for the first time since 2021 as the Jets have gone from 34-1 to 30-1 to win the Super Bowl. A slight odds change prior to Monday Night Football. As we welcome in Simon Hunter and Brian Matthews to the show to break down more about Davante Adams and the week to come in the NFL. Simon, I'm going to kick it to you first. Instant reacts off this Davante Adams move less than 12 hours after their loss to Buffalo.
I'd be pretty excited if I was a Jets fan. I mean, it's a big move, right? It's a big name and a guy who Rodgers has a rapport with, but I think at the end of the day, it doesn't fix any of their problems, right? They still can't stop the run. They still have issues stopping pass blocking on the offensive line. And the biggest question is their kicker. Like, I don't know why they haven't gotten rid of this kicker yet. He lost a Denver game. Can they blame the bad weather? And they blame the weather in this game as well. The weather's not going to change. That's your stadium, MetLife. Like, that's your home stadium. Mm-hmm. If this kid can't kick in it, you got to get a kicker that can. So just a dysfunctional organization that keeps doing dysfunctional things. And, yeah, it's a nice move, but why didn't they get this done 2 weeks ago? It just seems like everything they do is in the moment, in panic, just like the Solid Fire. So, yeah, it doesn't really move the needle much for me, but if I was a Jets fan, why would you not be excited? You're getting a number 2 receiver who's going to be better than Lazard.
Right, B-Matt. Obviously, Adams under contract to 2026. You feel like the window for the New York Jets is, so slim with a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers under center. Yeah. Does this move the needle for you in any way? What were your thoughts when you saw that trade go through?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't really surprise me. I mean, in fact, I kind of looked at it and thought, like, if you've tracked Aaron Rodgers, he loves playing with familiar, guys that he's played with before. There's been talk about this for a while, and I agree with Simon, though. This doesn't fix any of the issues they have. I was a little surprised, a team like Kansas City, after the loss of Rashee Rice and Marquise Brown, someone like them that's positioned, to win a Super Bowl maybe didn't offer a little bit more, maybe meet that asking price of a 2nd round. I'm not saying that he's worth it, but, like you said, when you have a window, and you believe a guy can make a difference. But for the Jets, it's a big move. I mean, Garrett Wilson and Davante Adams immediately become one of the most dangerous wide receiver duos in the NFL, and Breece Hall did look improved behind that offensive line, so we'll see. They just need to shore things up on defense.
Yeah, Simon, I just want to quickly ask you, the Jets' remaining strength of schedule, they're, one of the easiest left in football. We talked, week after week about their grueling schedule that was London games, primetime games, short weeks. Is there any interest in investing in this Jets team? I know you mentioned, their weaknesses are not fully addressed, but still an easier schedule. The offense that they're kind of forming right now, they're plus 140 to make the playoffs, 30-1 to win the Super Bowl. Is there any interest there to buy right before Pittsburgh this weekend?
Yeah, and it's tough because I've been high on them all summer coming into the year. Where I just saw a path for them to always make the playoffs. So I'm sure fans who listen to my show are getting sick of me talking about this Jets team, but it's still there. Like this division's still weak, and we talk all the time. It's really all about your schedule. That's how teams make it. I mean, do we really think the Bears are that good of a team? No, they've just had an easy schedule. That's why they're 4-2. Same goes for the Jets. Like the fact that they get to play New England and a rookie quarterback in Miami with a banged up Tua or a backup quarterback, that's a big deal. And there is no guarantee that Josh Allen's going to stay healthy the rest of the year, right? Especially the way he's been playing this year. So at plus 140, there's a reason this number's not up to plus 200, where the public is totally out on this Jets team. I have a professional, got to take a step back. I'm with all the negativity on this team, but I'm also in the mindset of they're a coin flip away from getting 2 different wins. So they're a team I'm trying to overreact with, and I'd still take them to make the playoffs.
Right. Obviously, you mentioned the Zerline misses yesterday with the Broncos one. Also, I mean, the offense couldn't score against Denver. The offense couldn't find success in the red zone yesterday. They get Davante Adams. You think that Garrett Wilson, everything in general with Mike Williams off to the sidelines now. The Jets should be more of a functional team, but it's a dysfunctional organization in general the last couple of years. That is for sure. But I mentioned Sunday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we have big information to also talk about. And that one is Justin Fields, though, I have to ask, on tilt.
Loser.
And the reason why I asked that is because right after Davante Adams gets announced to the New York Jets, Russell Wilson is taking first-team reps for the Pittsburgh Steelers, despite them starting out strong, despite Justin Fields, 10 total touchdowns, 1 interception. Simon, I'll kick it to you first. Mike Tomlin says he's in consideration to start on Sunday. What are your thoughts in general? Do you expect them to stick with Fields and then go to Russ if everything goes wrong, or vice versa? Are we expecting kind of Russ to start out, and then if things go wrong, we'll go back to the safety net that was Justin Fields?
I'm yearning for the day that these NFL teams hire professional bettors that can kind of help them in these scenarios. And this scenario is pretty simple. Russell Wilson has moved the line 3 points when he was announced that is most likely going to be the starter this week. So they went from being a favorite in this matchup to now they are an underdog. The books, sports bettors would tell you Russell Wilson does a negative disservice to their team against the spread. And the reason they are sitting here with a 4-2 record is because Justin Fields has the ultimate weapon of using his legs. They don't have that good of an offensive line. And that's why their offense has worked with Justin Fields running the ball. It's just another weapon that Russell Wilson does not have. His legs have been cooked 5 years ago, and he's just not that great of a passer. And their only good receiver right now is George Pickens. So I don't like the move. I think it's Tomlin being too loyal to the old guard and not realizing that this is the new NFL. He needs a running quarterback, especially with their offensive line. So again, if you're bringing in your backup QB, if you're bringing your starting QB, I should say, and it's moving the points by 3 points, the line by 3 points, take it from the Colts. The Colts saw that they were favored against Tennessee when it was Joe Flacco. When they thought it was going to be Richardson and moved it 3 points, last minute they put back in Joe Flacco and they won that game. I'm hoping for Pittsburgh they do the same with Justin Fields.
B-Man, I'm going to kick it to you, too. I mean, you were all over Justin Fields' 2+ touchdowns this past weekend. He came through for you. He's been so good on the ground for Pittsburgh. Like Simon said, it's really added an element to their game. A team that people were low on entering the season. They have the second highest point differential in the AFC now. What are your thoughts with the potential quarterback change that's in flux here?
Yeah, so it's kind of twofold on the answer. So the Steelers are a team that have a good enough defense that they can mask a lot of problems at quarterback. I'm not saying that Russell Wilson is the answer, but that team is very, very good on defense. So you just have to basically not turn the ball over a lot. You're going to be either in a position to win games or you're going to be able to win games. So the other part of it is their offensive line, like Simon said, is terrible. They're not playing well at all. So when he's dropping back, there are times where if you watch the last game, he's dropping back before he's got, a full second of actually being set in the pocket. He's already got to take off with his legs. That's something that Russell Wilson can't do. So he's taking, what should be a net, negative, maybe 6-7 yards and turning that into a first down. Those are things that Russell Wilson can't do. So I think it's just, again, I do think Mike Tomlin being a little bit, kind of loyal to the old guard, or maybe he's just trying to, I don't know, maybe kind of instill some life or maybe kind of see if the competitive fire comes out in Fields and he elevates his game. I don't know, but the Steelers are a lot better than a lot of people thought, and a lot of that has to do with Justin Fields.
Could be a wrench that's thrown into the situation for the Jets. Are they going to prepare for Fields? Are they going to prepare for Russ? Simon, I guess just really quickly here, with that trade news or with the potential sitting of Justin Fields, you're interested in the Jets if Russ starts. You're interested in the Steelers if Fields starts. Is that correct, or are you Jets all the way in this one, Steelers all the way?
No, you nailed it. If it's Russell Wilson, I'll be taking the Jets, especially if it's under 2. On the flip side, if we get last minute that it is Justin Fields going to start this game, we just saw the Jets team struggled against the running quarterback. So it's like, again, I don't know what Tomlin's doing here. It's a weird spot. Let Justin Fields lose this game, then it makes more sense. Don't sit him after a 4-2 start. That just sends mixed signals to this team.
Yeah, it really does. And obviously the Jets scrambling, need a win before their bye, potentially with the addition of Davante Adams. All of that will remain to be seen. We'll also talk about that game plenty throughout the week ahead on Green Dot Daily. Plus, you can always catch Simon over on The Favorites. The last topic I want to get to before we get your look ahead bets for the week is Nick Sirianni. He's on tilt, I guess, or maybe Eagles fans are on tilt because he starts yelling at the Eagles fans. They start yelling at each other. The Fire Nick chants get broken out. The Eagles are 3-2. They've not had A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith for like a couple weeks. And, since that start of the Eagles, 10-1 start last season, they are 4-8. Criticism is mounting on Sirianni. Simon, you're the resident Eagles fan here. What are your thoughts on this situation? The Eagles, for what it's worth, 14-1 to win the Super Bowl, plus 120 to win the East.
Yeah, just all of it. Him yelling at the fans, then him bringing his kids to the press conference. I think any Eagles fan's going to rub him the wrong way. It's like, you just beat the Browns. No, you see any other NFL coaches bringing their kids to the press conference after they beat the Browns at home by 4 points? No. So right now, Eagles fans are legitimately pissed off at this guy. They just do not like him. And I think it's just, eventually, you need a leader of men. And he does not feel like a leader of men. And that's why I think Eagles fans are upset. It's like, get Belichick, get Vrabel this offseason. Bring in 2 guys who are leaders of men. And, right now as we sit here, something's wrong with this Eagles offense. Like, they did have their weapons back this past week, and they couldn't do much except 2 big plays to Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. Like, even Barkley had a bad game. So, for me, there's so much dysfunction with this Eagles team. What are they to be favored by 3.5 points on the road in a divisional game? I'll take a Giants team that I know people are down on because of them blowing that game late against Cincinnati. But I just think they just got unlucky. And I think Neighbors will be back this week, so you're going to get good value on this Giants team. So that's definitely a game I'm lining up on right now at plus 3.5.
Yeah, B-Matt, I want to ask you before we get a little bit more in depth on that Giants game. Obviously, we were talking before the show. We were like, should we debate on who's the most hated coach in the NFL? And everyone was like, well, we can't because Nick Sirianni is the most hated guy in the NFL. It doesn't even matter if it's Eagles fans. It's everyone does not like him. What are your thoughts on this situation that's unfolding? I know, it's the offense seemingly dysfunctional despite, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, so I think you can just tell he's feeling the heat. Number one, they're not performing well on the field. And so when you've got your own fans yelling, fire Nick, and then after the game to actually acknowledge it and then kind of, show a moment of childish immaturity when you're the head coach of a football team and you're trying to preach to your players, in all these moments, ups and downs to keep your cool and a level head, that you can't do it yourself. And I just think that, you can tell he's really feeling the heat. They're not putting it together. And I think there's just a ton of bizarre behavior from him. It's not the first time it's happened. And, when you don't win ball games in the NFL, especially when you have a roster as talented as the Eagles, it's only a matter of time.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Nick Sirianni doing childish things, talking to the fans. Oh, yeah, he did that against the Chiefs, yelling in the tunnel when he was far away from the fans to actually face the Heat. We'll only see how that one goes. We talk about the Eagles, the hot seat that is kind of getting warmer for Nick Sirianni. Simon, you mentioned it earlier. You like the Giants catching the hook 3.5 at home against the Eagles Sunday at 1 o'clock. Tell me more about why you like the G-Men.
Yeah, there's a bunch of trends, too, where this is going to be a nice spot to back some home dogs. I mean, we just went through 2 weeks where road favorites were 12-0 against the spread. We're going to get a free point and a half of value on almost all these home dogs this week. So the Eagles plus 3.5, we love that number. The Browns, I think, are 5.5 against Cincinnati at home. It's gross, people. I know, but you just got to hold your nose and take these home dogs this week. You're just getting too much value to pass on.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants haven't looked bad, right? Like, they kept it close against Cincinnati, should have covered against the Bengals, and then Chase Bowen ran for a 30-yard touchdown in the second. B-Matt, real quick, before we let you go, you're targeting Saints, the Saints game. You're targeting a Broncos receiver that's been, growing chemistry with Bo Nix to date.
Yeah, so Devon Vele, I'm going to go over 30.5 receiving yards. He's played 2 full games this year. In those 2 full games, he's got 78 receiving yards, 39 receiving yards. Coach Payton said he wants to see some of the younger guys at work, maybe not funnel as many targets to Cortland Sutton as they have been. So I think that this is still a good number. It opened up, a little lower. I think it's a number that I can still back, though, at 30.5. So that's what I'm going to go with from the available lines that we've got.
Yeah, 14 targets through 2 games for him over in both. It feels like a good spot to continue buying him here. A little tough last name, but we could do that here on Green Dot Daily. Simon Hunter, Brian Matthews, I was going to say B-Matt. I refer to you however I want. Appreciate you guys hopping on, and we'll talk again soon.
Appreciate you.
If you want access to all of Action Pro's projections, make sure to sign up for our annual subscription that is currently on sale. Access includes exclusive player pop picks from Sean Kerner and other members of the Action Analytics team. You'll also get access to exclusive expert articles, our best spread, money line, and total bets, and real ticket and money percentages. To sign up, visit actionnetwork.com/pro today and use code GDD20 at sign up. One more time, that's code GDD20 at sign up for $20 off. The playoff are heating up over on the diamond with both championship series underway. The Mets were able to steal Game 2 from Los Angeles and have even the series at 1 apiece as the NLCS returns to New York for 3 games. As for the ALCS, the Yankees were able to hold on in Game 1 behind Carlos Rodon's 6 innings of 1-run ball. Game 2 set for tonight. We'll get to best bets with Sean Zerillo in just a second on that one, but Sean, I want to talk the NLCS first. If you're a Mets fan, man, are you happy that you were able to steal one from LA? You come home, you seemingly have the advantage at least in 3 and 4. I'm curious what the projections are saying. Is there still value to be had on the Mets as they head home for Game 3?
Yeah, I make the series line about -128 right now for the Dodgers. So +133 or better would be a bet for me on the Mets. The best line I saw was about +130. So just going to continue to wait to see if it ticks up prior to Game 3. But obviously, Walker Buehler, the Dodgers' worst starting pitcher remaining, going in Game 3, potentially would be lined up to go in Game 7 as well. That is the Mets' advantage, in addition to having home field for the next 3 games, best of 5, having 3 games at home. There's a couple of ways I think you could bet the Mets at this point, depending on odds if you shop around. There's a +850 for the Mets to sweep the final 3 games, or the 3 games remaining at Citi Field, to win this series 4-1 at 850. I made that line +794, so that could potentially be a way to poke it. You could also consider the Mets to win in 7 games at +500. I made that line +492. If you shop around, you can find those odds at different books. But the long shot way, I think you can consider playing the Mets right now, essentially to win both of the potential starts that Walker Buehler would make against them, in addition to winning the other game that Sean Manaea will start for the Mets in this series. So to win games 3, 6, and 7 at +2,800 in the exact order market, the Dodgers would be winning games 4 and 5 at Citi Field in that scenario. The Mets would be winning games 6 and 7 on the road at Dodger Stadium. But I think in terms of how the pitching matchups play out, that is the most favorable matchups for the Mets in the rest of the series. So 28-1 on that, I'll probably end up poking prior to Game 3.
Yeah, it really feels like the Mets kind of have the advantage late and early. Like that's kind of how you set it up with the 4-1 or 4-3, just getting rid of away from Jack Flaherty, Yamamoto. Of course, everything will be available. Bullpens on deck in Game 7, so we'll see everything happen if the series were to even last that long. And listen, we've talked the last couple of months. We've talked about us being Mets fans. Obviously, we bet numbers, not just out of fandom, hence the times that we have to fade the New York Mets. But you're going tomorrow. I'm going Thursday. I have to ask you, because I'm not really allowed to say on air what I would do for a Mets World Series, but I want to know, Sean, what would you do for a Mets World Series?
Yeah, I can't put this on other people, right? I can't be like, oh, I'll give up championships for my other favorite teams, because that's not other people's thing that they're giving up. So what I would give up personally, I give up watching any non-baseball ball sports until the Mets are eliminated in another season. If the Mets win the World Series for 3 straight seasons, I'm not watching football, basketball, soccer, anything else. I still have to watch combat sports for work, so I can't remove that from my life entirely. But no Super Bowl, no Jets. And specifically, I'm a Miami Hurricanes fan as well in the college football playoff hunt this year. Mets, Jets,
Wow.
Islanders, Knicks, Miami Hurricanes. This is probably the best my collection of teams have been all together in my lifetime. And I would be giving all of that up watching that for a Mets World Series right now.
Yeah, there are murmurs that I'm saying maybe I get an OMG tattoo if the Mets are going to win the World Series. Those are just preliminary murmurs, but that's probably something where I'd go, Plus, I'd always say, listen, I always told that I love my girlfriend. Them winning the World Series is going to contend with my wedding day. Probably the wedding day wins in the end, but man, I've been waiting 27 years, Sean, for a Mets World Series, and we're inching closer and closer. Let's move on to the ALCS, though. The Guardians against the Yankees. The Yankees, I mentioned, able to win Game 1 behind Carlos Rodon's strong start. From a series perspective, is there value still on the Guardians? I'm assuming yes, because you bet them in Game 2.
Yeah, I bet them in Game 2. Now, the line moved away for me pretty quickly. If you follow me in the Action Network app, hopefully you were able to get the plus 165 that was out there, because every other book opened basically at plus 150. But I think it's pretty evident, if you mildly pay attention to baseball, if you're somewhat contrarian, to determine that most people would be on the Yankees. Most people are going to assume that the Yankees will win this series and that the Guardians will not win the World Series amongst these 4 remaining teams, because by far they are the smallest market of the 4. And that said, they are the value side from a projection standpoint. I don't know if they can actually get it done given the matchups, but I make their World Series line plus 713 at the moment. You can get as high as plus 800 out there right now. I also make them about plus 280 to win this series against the Yankees. If you get 3-1 or better, either on their series price or their AL pennant odds, which is expressing the same thing, I would consider that right now. And then lastly, the Guardians to win this series 4-3. I make that line 610 plus 610. You can get plus 700 or better. I think if I'm going to bet the Guardians to come back in this series, it would be to get it done in 7 games. They're going to need to win some games at home. I'm not sure if they're going to win Game 2, even though I bet them, but they have been much better progressive field, leaning into their increased home run factor to right field this season. So I think they are going to be a little bit more difficult to handle, using their bullpen more aggressively as they get to the back end of their rotation.
Yeah, it really feels like the Mets are kind of that team of destiny, and it would feel perfect if the Guardians were able to at least get to the World Series. Francisco Lindor gets to potentially end it against his former team that didn't want to give him that contract. I also just don't want to see a Subway Series World Series for the sake of, like, I probably couldn't talk to half my friends for the next decade if the Yankees ended up winning. But Game 2 tonight with the Yankees and the Guardians, the standalone postseason game in the ALCS. Yanks minus 175 favorites, a total of 7. Tanner Bybee on the mound against Garrett Cole. So, Sean, we're going to do a little game here because I know you have a bunch of picks. The Guardians, you said, are out of range, but there's 3 more to get to. We'll start with the total. I'm putting you on a pitch clock. We're going to do in between batters, so there's a 30-second rule in between picks, too. You have 30 seconds to tell me why you're betting each thing. We'll start with the total. You're up.
Yeah, over 7 here. I projected this total at 7.3. Gabe Morales, an over-leaning umpire behind the plate. Career about 54% to the over and a 4% ROI on those bets as well. So even though the weather, wind blowing in, temperatures around 50 degrees, chilly in New York, we'll refer to that for the rest of the Mets series at Citi Field as well. Even though the weather is knocking this total down, I would still lean over current prices. Just want plus money on the over 7, and it seems like it's getting there before game time.
Wow, 28 seconds to start. All right, Sean, listen, you're a pro. I was doubting that you'd be able to do 30 seconds on a total. How about a player prop? I feel more confident you can. I feel like, maybe we could do 20, but you have the 30 seconds. We're going to start Garrett Cole, over, under, 5.5 strikeouts. 3, 2, 1.
Under 5.5 at minus 135. Some of the sharper books have this juiced to minus 150, and Sean Kerner likes this as well. Our Action Labs projection for Cole's strikeout total tonight is about 4.8. Cole's fastball velocity, his stuff plus, his strikeout rate have all moved down in each of the past 3 years. He was very fortunate with his BABIP and his strand rate last year to win the Cy Young. This is a reduced pitcher compared to the guy we saw 3 years ago.
Wow, 27.96. Sean Zerillo on fire with his picks in between the pitch clock. Listen, I should never doubt you, Sean. That's all I have to say. Tanner Bybee, over under strikeouts is the last one that we have right now, set at 4.5. Give it to me.
Yeah, I could just say under and we could call it a day on the pitch clock game, right? But Tanner Bybee against the Tigers introduced a sinker. He threw it 13 times in game 1, 12 times in game 4. 22% of his pitches were sinkers. And as we know, in the playoffs, 85% of the time, if you win the home run battle, you win the game. So Bybee looking to limit hard contact. I think he's going to keep pounding that sinker tonight against the Yankees. As a result, I like him to go under his strikeout total 4.5. Bet that up to about -120.
28.48. You have to get that up to -120. That perfectly puts you under the 30 seconds. No violations. I was ready to, go to the bullpen, try and give you an extra ball, but 3 for 3. Just a recap if you were too mesmerized by the fact that Sean Zerillo was able to do that so eloquently. Over 7 at plus money. Cole under strikeouts. It's also a Sean Kerner projected approved play. And then Tanner Bybee under 4.5 strikeouts. A handful of plays to get you ready for game 2 of the ALCS tonight. Sean Zerillo, appreciate you hopping on. Best of luck, my friend, and we'll talk again soon.
Let's go Mets, and maybe I'll join you on that tattoo bet if they do pull it off.
Over to the hardwood, and here's a quick recap of the WNBA Finals as the series heads to Minnesota for Game 3 on Wednesday. Game 1 was a complete shock to the New York Liberty, who blew a 15-point fourth quarter lead. The Lynx stormed back to force overtime as 3 separate players, including Napheesa Collier, poured in 20-plus points. Minnesota shot 50% in Game 1's win. Game 2, though, was much more New York speed as they evened the series with a dominant 80-66 win. This time it was Breanna Stewart leading the charge with 21 points and 7 steals. The Liberty held Minnesota's offense in check as the Lynx shot 30% from 3. Collier had as many turnovers as she did field goals in that one. And so now we welcome in Maria Marino to talk more about the WNBA Finals. As Game 3 rapidly approaches, Maria, quite a shock in Game 1 out of Minnesota. We're now tied at 1-1 heading to Minnesota for Game 3. I'm curious your thoughts as a whole on this series. It feels like a competitive one is brewing.
Yeah, this series has been a wild ride so far, and I expect more of the same. I mean, there's always the chance that the New York Liberty could be punking us and then go on and win 3 games in a row. But just given the sample size of the history between the two teams this season, Minnesota's actually 4-2 straight up and against the spread against New York. I just find it hard to believe that the Liberty will win 3 in a row and close this out in 4. But at the same time, they've only lost 2 games in a row once this season, and that was all the way back in May. And so therefore, I can't really see the Lynx winning in 4 either. So my thing is, I'm expecting 5. I'm expecting this to go back to Brooklyn for a decisive Game 5, and I'm thinking if you like either team to win the series, bet them to win in 5 games. That's where you're going to get the most value as opposed to just betting them outright to win the series. So you can get New York at 3-2 plus 180, Minnesota 3-2 plus 490. That's how I would approach it.
And then just quickly following up on that, and you mentioned, Breanna Stewart obviously looked great in Game 2. She honestly looked great in Game 1 as well. And you, instead of just taking her, if you're thinking New York's going to win, odds are she's going to win MVP. You're taking a different approach when it comes to that futures market.
I have to say, MVP is a little bit of a quandary for me right now because normally, I would say Stewie, and it tracks with what we're seeing. She is the favorite to win Finals MVP. But if you remember back in Game 1, she also had 2 chances to win the game for New York, missed a free throw, missed a bucket at the end of overtime. And I don't know. I feel like that narrative might be a little bit hard to overturn, but she's still more than capable because like she had a great game too. I think she's going to be the most consistent. She has the best, I think, ability. That this is all, by the way, if you think New York's going to win.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you think Minnesota, you know, Nafisa is actually a pretty decent value for Finals MVP. But my thing is, if you like Stewie, who I think is probably the most consistent New York player, go top point scorer instead, where you can still get plus money at around plus 180 right now.
Right, and you mentioned game one, obviously she did not shoot that well, 18 points, 9 rebounds. She is putting up plenty of points, kind of guided them in game two. But let's talk about game three, which is tomorrow. New York, they opened as 1.5 point favorites. That line's moved up right around 2.5, and over under of 160.5. You mentioned Nafisa Collier being a decent look in the Finals MVP market. If you like Minnesota, you're liking her from a player prop perspective in game three here.
So, Charlie, taking a little bit of a different approach with you this week. If you recall, past few times we've spoken, I've gone with a lot of role players. This is the time for the star to shine. Give me Nafisa Collier to go over 20.5 points. So first of all, she's been, you know, the most consistent scorer, the leading scorer in all of the WNBA playoffs thus far. She has gone over this line in 4 of her last 5 games and 7 of her last 10. She's shooting the ball at a very efficient clip, 56% from the field, 41% from 3. And here's the kicker. Because I'm not 100% sure which way this game is going to go, I expect a split. I'm just not sure, is New York going to take game 3 or 4? I'm looking for a Minnesota bounce back, but I'm looking for it through Nafisa Collier. So she only took 12 shots in game 2. Her fewest attempts in all 9 playoff games. And she also had a very uncharacteristic turnover game, 7 turnovers. So she just really had trouble getting going. She had a bunch of fouls as well. And, you know, the Lynx as a whole, their lowest scoring output of the postseason, just 66 points in game 2. I expect them to be energized on their home floor, to put up more points, put up more of a fight. And that all starts with Fee. I guarantee you the first thing that jumps out on the box score for Cheryl Reeve and company is that stat line for Nafisa. How can we get her going? How can we get her more looks? They're going to want to get her more involved. And I think personally, she is going to be more aggressive. She only took 2 free throws in each of the last 2 games. She's got to get a few more whistles in game 3. So I think she can get over that 20.5 point mark.
Listen, Maria, I mean, I have to tell you on this one, you haven't steered me wrong of late the last few weeks. We cashed the last few times. Listen,
Don't jinx it.
I'm not jinxing it. Listen, it's a great look, and I understand, and the logic is perfect here. And you're really appealing to me. I tell Sean Kerner all the time, I said, give me overs to bet. And all he does is come to Green Dot Daily with unders. Now I get a star player in a perfect buy opportunity, buyback spot. Game 3, the Minnesota crowd's going to be pumping. I'm going to be riding with you on Fee here. So I appreciate you hopping on. Best of luck in Game 3, and we'll see how things go, and we'll talk again very soon.
I just want to say I'm hoping we make it 3-0 on picks that you tell me. And look, no offense to Kerner, but I like to bet overs. That's way more fun. We have fun over here.
That's music to my ears, Maria. Thank you so much, and here's a 3-0. And just a reminder that any pick we give out here on the show, like the one you just heard from Maria on Nafisa Collier, you can easily reference by following us in the award-winning Action Network app under the handle @Green.Daily. We keep track so you don't have to. And that's going to be all for Green Dot Daily on this Tuesday. Enjoy the postseason baseball. Enjoy the day off from the NFL. We'll be back here tomorrow, Wednesday at 3 Eastern on the Action app and YouTube channel. Get out of here.